The Taliban have established a new government in Afghanistan. They've named the country's new ministers, a caretaker government dominated by the group's old guard. Let's start with the Prime Minister of Afghanistan. A lot of names have been doing the rounds over the last few days, but the Taliban named Mullah Hassan Akhund as the new Prime Minister. Hassan Akhund is said to be very close to the Emir Sheikh Hibatullah Akhundzada. Hassan is one of the founding members of the Taliban and the head of the Rehbari Shura, or the Leadership Council, for over 20 years now. He also worked as a foreign minister under the Taliban rule in the 90s. Akhund has also been sanctioned by the United Nations. He will have two deputies, including Mullah Baradar. Baradar, remember, co-founded the Taliban in Afghanistan. He was the popular choice for the Prime Minister. He had fled to Pakistan after the Taliban regime was overthrown in 2001. He had led the group's political office in Qatar since January 2019. Months after he was released from a jail in Pakistan, Baradar headed the Taliban's political office in Doha. He has been the Taliban's most visible face in recent years, representing the Taliban in negotiations with the United States during the peace talks. The second Deputy Prime Minister of Afghanistan is Maulavi Abdul Salam Hanafi. The next is another member related to the old guard, Muhammad Yaqub. There are no photos available of him yet. He is the 33-year-old son of Mullah Omar. He has been named the Defense Minister. Until now, he served as the commander of Taliban's military operations. There were reports that many within the Taliban's ranks wanted him to be the Prime Minister, but the top leaders felt he was young and lacked experience. He commands the loyalty of a section of the movement in Kandahar because of his prestige and the prestige of his father's name. The Taliban have also appointed a Minister of Justice, Abdul Hakim Ishaqzai, a founding member of the Taliban and a close associate of its slain leader, Mullah Mohammad Omar. He also served as the chairman of Taliban's negotiation team in Qatar. There's another controversial name on the list, the Interior Minister of the country. Sirajuddin Haqqani, a United Nations designated terrorist and the mastermind of several terror attacks globally. He currently heads the Haqqani network, the most powerful and feared terror outfit in Afghanistan. Amir Khan Muttaqi has been appointed the Foreign Minister of Afghanistan. He was part of the Taliban's negotiation team in Qatar and served as the Information Minister during their previous rule. Serving as the Deputy Foreign Minister to Muttaqi will be Sher Mohammad Abbas Stanekzai. He was serving as the head of the Taliban's political office in Doha. Stanekzai was once a cadet at the prestigious Indian Military Academy in Dehradun. This was during the 70s when India was involved in training Afghan army officials. But after the Soviet-Afghan war ended, Stanekzai left the Afghan army. He took a radical turn and joined the Taliban. This was in the year 1996. Stanekzai will now serve as the Deputy Foreign Minister. Khairullah Khairkhwah has been named the Information Minister after 9/11 terror attacks. He was held at the Guantanamo Bay detainment camp in Cuba and was released in 2014 in return of a U.S. Marine. Serving as a deputy to him is Zabihullah Mujahid, who has long served as the spokesperson of the Taliban for years now. Zabihullah has operated in the shadows, only a voice on the end of the phone for many journalists. No photo of him existed until he gave his first press conference last month. Another name on the list is Mullah Hidayat Badri, who will serve as the Taliban's finance minister. He is another obscure character. There is absolutely no information available about his credentials. It is still not clear what role in the government would be played by Mullah Hibatullah Akhundzada. Nothing has been seen or heard in public about the leader ever since the fall of Kabul. And with us on the broadcast is our correspondent Anas Malik, who was present while this press conference was being delivered. Anas, a lot of those names have raised eyebrows, but no surprises there as far as women not being a part of the cabinet is concerned.
Well, yes, 33-member cabinet, a long list of ministers, long list of deputies, at least 5 of them who are listed. There can be more, but no women. We tried to ask that question to Zabiullah Mujahid just as he had left. In fact, another known network, our colleague, had also tried to shout that question literally to Zabiullah Mujahid, but he evaded that. The press conference today, it came at a 42-minute notice, to be precise. For the first message that came in, it said that Zabiullah Mujahid is to address an emergency press conference, and then after that we saw that the Taliban media team telling, or rather feeding or pushing this, that a government is to be announced. But what with the government? It was unclear whether the government was to be announced, whether the cabinet was to be announced, whether the government formation date was to be announced. As I said, there were too many speculations, increased speculation that had come in at that point of time. And then the seating arrangement was such that it was only Zabiullah Mujahid who was to address the press conference, and the seats in front, sofas were placed. At least 4 sofa sets were placed. After that, after a while, we saw some Taliban leaders walking in, some known, some unknown, and they walked in and they sat down. And that gave a clearer picture that yes, it is to do with the cabinet announcement. Zabiullah Mujahid came in after 4 to 5 minutes, and then he started off with the press conference and directly said that they are announcing the cabinet ministers. A 33-member cabinet that includes a lot of deputies, which includes the Deputy Foreign Minister Sheikh Abbas Tanakzai. The Foreign Minister has been nominated as Amir Khan Muttaqi, who was the head of Dawa and Guidance Commission as well, part of the Doha team. 2 deputies of the Council of Ministers, or rather the deputies to the Prime Minister, who would be overlooking affairs. The first deputy would be Mullah Abdul Ghani brother. The second deputy would be Maulvi Abdul Salam Hanafi. Both are from the Doha team. Both are part of the political office. Mullah Abdul Salam Hanafi had met the Chinese ambassador just yesterday. Mullah Abdul Ghani brother has been holding meetings. Mullah Hassan Akhund has been named as the Prime Minister, or as the head of state, whereas the Amir of Afghanistan, of Islamic Emirate rather, would be Hibatullah Akhundzada. He would continue in the role as the supreme leader, or as the Amir of the Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan. That is what has been cleared. So lots of takeaways from that press conference, but yes, certainly no women in there, and that leaves a bigger question mark as to the fate of women over here, as to how, with regards to their future, would they be allowed to work, would they not be allowed to work, who would be their voice, who would be their representation in the cabinet. Lots of questions there that remain unanswered. Molly?
Right, stay with me, Anas. Also on the broadcast is Colonel Lawrence Sellin. Thanks very much for being here with us on WION World is One. For weeks now, world leaders have talked about how the Taliban should be judged by their actions and not their words. Today, they have announced the names of those who will be leading the government, but terrorists have been named as ministers. Is there any reason to believe now that the Taliban have changed?
No, I see no reason to believe the Taliban has changed. What strikes me about this Taliban government is how many unknown people there are in this. And as you correctly point out, the head of the Taliban hasn't been seen at all. It may be that there's going to be a shadow government that actually runs things in the background. The new Prime Minister, Mullah Akhund, is one of those unknowns. He's a religious leader. He probably doesn't have much clout on the world stage. The face of the Taliban will probably be the Deputy Prime Minister, Mullah Baradar, who was the chief negotiator in the peace talks in Doha. But I think the most ominous appointment is Sirajuddin Haqqani, the head of the Haqqani network. He's a known terrorist. The United States has put a $10 million bounty on his head. I think his presence in the government will make a lot of countries reluctant to recognize this new Taliban government. But I think he was chosen by the Pakistani intelligence, the ISI, We know that the Interior Ministry controls the internal security apparatus. I think the Pakistani intelligence, the ISI, will want to have their fingers in there to know what's going on internally in Afghanistan. So essentially, the Interior Ministry will be run by Pakistani intelligence.
Right. Stay with me, Colonel Sellin. Anas, you've been tracking those developments very closely. The list of names is out. How soon do we expect this government now to take charge? Earlier, it was said that the new government will be established on 9/11, a very symbolic date that the Taliban had chosen. Do we have any further information on that front?
Well, with regards to 9/11, at least Taliban here in Kabul claimed that it would not be 9/11 because there is a very serious threat alert for 9/11 as well. They fear that any untoward incident from the IS can take place. This is what Taliban officials off record have been telling us, behind the camera on the condition of anonymity, have been telling us. So we expect the government formation to be done, or rather the government functioning to be in function from Friday or on Saturday. From Friday, because Friday is considered as a holy day in Islam. So there could be a possibility that we can possibly see the ceremony for this government to be taking place on Friday or before that. But there is no official word from the Taliban as yet on that. We understand that there are 6 countries which have been invited for this ceremony. Those include Pakistan, Iran, Russia, China, Turkey and Qatar. No date as yet has been given. No country as yet has confirmed either for this swearing-in ceremony or for this government formation ceremony. Molly?
Right, we're leaving it there for the moment. Anas, thanks very much for those updates. Coming back to you, Colonel Sellin, towards the end of that press conference, the Taliban spokesperson, when asked about the issue of women's rights, said that we will be looking into it, we will be dealing with it, whatever that means. But the fact is that there is no woman who has been named as a part of that cabinet. As Anas is telling us that that question was also raised earlier on in the press conference. Are you surprised at all? And how exactly do we say that the Taliban will be looking at the issue of women's rights when we look at the attacks that have been taking place on women when their rights have not been safeguarded so far?
Yeah, well, you're exactly right. The Taliban should be judged by their actions, and so far their actions, it's not very promising for the women of Afghanistan. There are no women in this cabinet, as you correctly point out. Women have been attacked on the streets. They've already segregated education. It's not clear that women in the Taliban-controlled Afghanistan will have any education other than religious education. So it's the Taliban of today doesn't seem any different to me than the Taliban of 20 years ago.
Right. Just hours before this press conference was held, Afghans had taken to the streets of the capital. They had said that Pakistan must stop interfering in the affairs of their government. They must stop meddling. This was right after it was said that Pakistan was openly supporting the Taliban in Panjshir province. Are you optimistic at all of any sort of international intervention at this point?
Well, I hope there will be international intervention. As you correctly note, that Pakistan is intervening in the fighting in the Panjshir Valley, including, I have heard, air support and bombings of civilians there. This is going to be a slaughter in the Panjshir unless the world community gets together and pushes back on this. I think the Taliban... there will be a Taliban resistance. We saw it in Panjshir. We're seeing it on the streets of Kabul. And I think the world community should do everything they can to support it.
Right. Leaving it there for the moment, Colonel Sellin. Thanks very much for those perspectives. Like we said, those protests that were held in capital Kabul earlier in the day, Afghans had taken to the streets saying that Pakistan must stop interfering in Afghanistan. The Taliban now have established a new government in Afghanistan, a caretaker government, but dominated by the group's old guard. The Prime Minister, who has been named, is Mullah Hassan Akhund. He is on the UN terror list. We are taking a very short break at this point. Lots more coming up on the other side. WION now available in your country. Download the app now. Get all the news on the move.